Have you ever felt a quiet loneliness after retirement? One that lingers even on sunny days? Many believe that reconnecting with old friends is the answer. After all, these are people who knew us before the world grew quieter. But sometimes, revisiting the past doesn't bring the comfort we expect. Old friendships may have changed. Lives move in different directions. And when we seek connection from a place of emotional need, we may end up feeling more alone than before. Today, I want to gently explore 6 reasons why relying on old friendships to ease retirement loneliness might not be the healing path we hoped for. This isn't about giving up on people. It's about understanding our own needs with greater kindness. Instead of reaching outward, perhaps it's time to look inward. Because peace and fulfillment in this new chapter of life begin not with others, but with a deeper connection to ourselves. Stay with me. This reflection may change the way you approach your social life, and offer a more hopeful, grounded way forward. Let's begin. Reason 1. Holding on to the past can make it harder to live fully in the present. For many people, especially in the years after retirement, old friendships become more than just relationships. They become symbols of a time when we felt vital, connected, and needed. So we hold on. We revisit memories. We try to recreate moments that once brought us comfort, joy, or a sense of belonging. There is nothing wrong with remembering. In fact, it's beautiful. Our past has shaped us. It deserves to be honored. But sometimes, without meaning to, we become so anchored to what was, that we stop seeing what is. You might find yourself thinking, things were better back then. I was happier. Those were the people who truly understood me. And maybe that's true. But the danger lies in believing that your best days are behind you. That nothing now, or ahead, could possibly compare. When we place too much of our emotional weight in the past, we unintentionally close the door on new connections, new ideas, and new parts of ourselves that are still waiting to be discovered. You may sit across from an old friend, hoping to feel like your younger self again. But instead you feel the distance. Not because they've changed or you've failed, but because life has moved forward. And you too are being called forward. The question isn't, how do I go back? The question is, how can I build something meaningful now? It takes courage to loosen our grip on the past, to bless it for what it gave us, and then to step into the present with open hands, ready to receive whatever life still has in store. Remember this. The present moment is not a lesser chapter. It's the only chapter that's still being written. And you are the author. What friendships are waiting to form, if only you'd look around? What passions are waiting to be nurtured, if only you'd let yourself begin again? You don't have to forget your past to live fully now. You just have to stop trying to live inside it. Reason 2. You might be seeking comfort in the wrong place, and that's more common than you think. When we feel lonely, especially after a major life change like retirement, it's only natural to long for something familiar. A voice we've known. A smile that once made us feel seen. And so, many of us instinctively turn to old friends, hoping their presence will mend the quiet ache that settled into our days. But here's something few people talk about. Loneliness isn't always about missing people. Often it's about missing purpose. Before retirement, our lives were shaped by structure. You woke up with a reason, to work, to serve, to care, to contribute. Your days were full not just of tasks but of identity. You knew your place in the world. You were needed. You mattered in a way that was outwardly recognized. And then, almost overnight, that rhythm stopped. Suddenly, there are long stretches of silence. Fewer obligations. Less urgency. And in that space, a quiet void begins to form. So we reach for people. Old friends. Old routines. We believe that if we can just recapture the past, if we can sit across from someone who once knew us, we'll feel whole again. But here's the truth many discover. Even in the company of others, we can still feel empty. Why? Because what we're truly craving isn't just companionship, it's meaning. It's the deep, inner nourishment that comes from feeling useful, from growing, from making a difference, even in small ways. Let me tell you about Martha. After she retired at 68, she filled her calendar with visits and phone calls. She tried to stay connected with everyone, high school friends, former co-workers, neighbors she hadn't seen in years. But despite all that effort, she often came home feeling hollow. It wasn't until she began volunteering at a local animal shelter, showing up every week, offering her time and tenderness, that something shifted. Her days had purpose again. And in that purpose, the loneliness began to ease. You see, when we try to fill an inner void with outer connection, it rarely works. Friendships can enhance our lives, but they can't substitute for a life that feels meaningful. So if you're feeling the pull to visit an old friend, pause for a moment and gently ask yourself, am I really missing this person, or am I missing feeling needed, feeling alive? This kind of self-honesty isn't easy. It takes courage to admit that what we long for may not come from someone else, but from something deeper within us. It might be time to look inward before you reach outward. Instead of expecting others to complete the picture, ask yourself, what lights me up? What would I do if no one were watching? What small act could bring someone else comfort and give me meaning in return? Whether it's gardening, mentoring a younger person, learning a new craft, or offering your wisdom to a community project. These things restore the sense of purpose we so often try to reclaim through nostalgia. Remember this, you are still needed. The world may have stopped asking for your attention the way it used to, but that doesn't mean you no longer have something to offer. The invitation now is to offer it on your terms, from your heart, and in a way that makes you feel truly alive. So, instead of seeking comfort in the familiar, try planting seeds in new soil. You may be surprised by what blossoms. If this reflection spoke to something inside you, if you've ever looked for connection only to discover a deeper need for purpose, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to share in the comments. Have you ever mistaken loneliness for a lack of people, when it was really a lack of meaning? Or simply type number 2 below if this part resonated with you. Your stories remind us that we are not alone, and that our journeys, though different, are more connected than we realize. And if you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and tap the notification bell. We're building a gentle, thoughtful space here, for reflection, for growth, and for real conversations that matter in this stage of life. Your support means more than you know. It helps us continue creating content that uplifts, informs, and hopefully brings a little more light into your day. Now let's keep moving forward, together. Reason 3. Friendships change after retirement. And that's not a failure, it's a transition. One of the quiet heartaches that comes with retirement is realizing that some friendships, once central to our lives, no longer feel the same. At first, it can be confusing. You may feel excited to reconnect, imagining conversations flowing easily, shared laughter picking up right where it left off. But then reality lands softly, and sometimes painfully. You make the effort. You call. You visit. You sit down with an old friend expecting warmth and familiarity, but something feels off. The connection isn't what it used to be. The energy is different. And maybe you find yourself doing most of the talking, or struggling to find anything meaningful to say at all. Why does this happen? Before retirement, many of our friendships were rooted in shared routines. You saw each other at work, during coffee breaks, at team lunches, or community events. These casual but frequent touchpoints kept the bond alive without effort. The connection wasn't just emotional, it was logistical. It fit neatly into your life. But retirement changes that landscape. The routines fall away. And what remains is the core of the relationship, stripped of structure, reduced to essence. For some friendships, that essence is strong enough to survive the shift. For others, it gently fades. Not out of malice. Simply because both people have grown in different ways. Some friends may have embraced new passions, new circles, or simply a quieter lifestyle. Others may be coping with their own changes, grief, illness, relocation, or personal transformation that you're not fully aware of. And while you may still cherish the past you shared, you might realize you no longer walk the same path. It's easy to take this personally. To wonder, was I not important enough? Or, did I do something wrong? But more often than not, this change isn't about blame. It's about life unfolding as it does, quietly, inevitably, and sometimes apart from our wishes. Take a moment to reflect. Are you holding on to a version of a friendship that no longer exists? Are you seeking connection from someone who's no longer emotionally available or even aware of your needs? This realization can be tender, even heartbreaking, but it can also be freeing. Because once we accept that friendships evolve, we stop chasing what was, and begin creating space for what could be. You are not alone in this experience. Many people feel it but seldom speak about it. They carry the disappointment in silence, not wanting to seem ungrateful or needy. But naming it gives us power. It reminds us that we have a choice. Rather than clinging to relationships that no longer bring us joy or balance, we can turn our attention toward building new ones. Ones that reflect who we are now, not just who we used to be. Ones that don't require constant effort to sustain, but grow naturally from shared values, present interests, and mutual care. Your worth isn't measured by how many old friends remain in your life. It's reflected in how fully and openly you show up for yourself today. So let those friendships that have run their course rest with gratitude, and gently, courageously make room for new beginnings. Reason 4. Over-reliance on friends can hinder personal growth, especially in life's most transformative chapter. After retirement, it's completely normal to seek the company of people who make us feel safe. The world shifts. We no longer have the roles that once gave us identity. We're no longer the boss, the colleague, the daily contributor to someone else's routine. And in that quiet space, we often reach backward, toward friends from earlier chapters of life. Old friendships can feel like home. They remind us of who we were, what we've lived through, the joy we once shared. And yes, there is beauty in that. But here's something worth pausing for. Sometimes, the comfort of the past can quietly prevent us from growing into who we're meant to become. When we rely too much on old friends to give us meaning, we risk closing ourselves off from new experiences. We may stop exploring, stop learning, stop dreaming. Because staying in what's familiar feels easier than facing the vulnerability of starting again. Barbara, a 74-year-old widow, held tightly to her friendships from youth. Whenever loneliness struck, she picked up the phone. She visited old neighbors. She relived stories from decades past. But over time she began to notice something. These interactions, while nostalgic, didn't fill her the way they used to. She wasn't feeling alive, she was feeling stuck. And when she finally allowed herself to step into something new, joining a local book circle, learning watercolor painting, she felt a kind of spark she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't that her old friendships were wrong. It's just that they had become a resting place, not a growing place. Here's the deeper truth. As we grow older, our need for personal evolution doesn't disappear. It becomes more important than ever. You are still a becoming. Still capable of discovering new parts of yourself. Still worthy of joy that is fresh, not recycled. That doesn't mean you must abandon longtime friends. But it may mean loosening your grip. Allowing space for new people, new passions, and new versions of yourself to emerge. Ask yourself gently, am I visiting this person out of love? Or out of fear of what might happen if I step forward alone? Am I clinging to something because it feels safe, or because it truly feeds my spirit? When we stop depending on others to give our life shape, we begin shaping it ourselves. And that, my friend, is freedom. If this reflection stirred something within you, let me know. Have you ever realized that staying in old patterns was keeping you from something new? Leave a comment or simply write, number 4, if this part of the message resonated with you. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I invite you to join us here. We're not just creating videos, we're building a space for gentle wisdom, real stories, and meaningful growth. Your voice matters. Your presence here matters. Thank you for walking this journey with us. Reason 5. Constantly visiting can lead to social imbalance, and leave you feeling more alone than before. Friendships are meant to be shared ground. Two people giving, receiving, supporting, and enjoying each other's presence. But what happens when that balance begins to tilt? When you find yourself always being the one who calls, who visits, who keeps the connection alive. At first, you might not think much of it. You tell yourself you're being thoughtful. You care. You're simply making the effort others might not have the time or energy for. But over time, a quiet question begins to grow inside you. Why am I always the one reaching out? You show up. You initiate. You rearrange your schedule. And yet, you realize the gesture is rarely, if ever, returned. This one-sided rhythm can slowly erode even the most meaningful connections. Not because your friends don't care, but because the balance is missing. And when you're always the one giving, of your time, your energy, your emotional presence, it starts to feel less like friendship and more like obligation. Let's be honest, it hurts to wonder if someone would notice if you stopped calling. It's painful to feel like maybe the bond you've treasured has quietly faded without you realizing it. But here's the truth many people discover after retirement. Real friendship is mutual. Not in a perfectly even way, but in spirit, in effort, in care. When one person does all the reaching, it becomes a pursuit, not a relationship. That's what happened to Richard, a kind-hearted 70-year-old who made it his mission to stay in touch with his old friends. He drove long distances, made phone calls every week, planned visits, only to find those same friends rarely, if ever, initiated anything themselves. At first he brushed it off. But eventually he began to feel like maybe he was holding on to something that no longer existed. And that realization brought sadness, but also clarity. If you found yourself in Richard's shoes, always doing the reaching, know this. You are not being too much. You are simply giving to the wrong places. A true connection should lift you, not drain you. It should feel like a shared circle of care, not a silent performance where you're the only one on stage. So if you're tired of being the one who always makes the effort, take a gentle step back. Observe what happens. See who comes forward. And if no one does, that's not rejection. It's redirection, an invitation to pour your energy into relationships that feel alive, mutual, and meaningful. You deserve friendships where your presence is not just welcomed but cherished. Reason 6. Unbalanced friendships can drain your energy, even when they come from a place of loyalty. As we get older, our time becomes more sacred, and so does our emotional energy. We've learned, sometimes through pain, that we can't afford to spend hours in spaces that leave us feeling emptier than when we arrived. And yet, many of us stay in friendships out of habit, or duty, or guilt. We tell ourselves, we've known each other for so long. They don't have anyone else. They need me. But in trying to be loyal, we sometimes forget to ask the most important question. Does this friendship still nourish my spirit? You might find yourself visiting someone regularly, someone you've known for decades, only to leave the encounter feeling more tired than fulfilled. Maybe the conversations are always negative. Maybe they talk but never truly listen. Or maybe, deep down, they no longer see the person you've become, only the person you once were. And yet you keep showing up. Because you were raised to be kind, to be dependable, to not give up on people. But here's the gentle truth. Kindness is not the same as self-abandonment. Being loyal to someone else should never come at the cost of betraying your own peace. Take Thomas, for example. At 76, he took pride in being the dependable one. He never missed a check-in, always remembered birthdays, always showed up when no one else did. But slowly he began to notice that after these visits he felt drained, emotionally and even physically. Some friends only wanted to vent. Others rarely asked how he was. He began to question whether these friendships were rooted in love or obligation. And that's the quiet shift that often comes with age. We realize we don't just want company, we want connection. Not every relationship deserves a front row seat in this new chapter of your life. You are allowed to choose peace over obligation. You are allowed to invest in friendships that are reciprocal, uplifting, and alive with mutual care. Because friendship, at its best, is not about enduring each other, it's about enriching each other. So take a moment to reflect. Are there people in your life who drain your spirit more than they fill it? Are there relationships that have quietly become one-sided or even toxic without you noticing? Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally care for yourself. Final thoughts. If you've made it to this point, thank you. Truly. What we've talked about today isn't always easy to hear, but it is important. Because the way we think about friendship, especially after retirement, can deeply affect how we feel about ourselves and the life we're living now. Yes, friendships matter. They always will. But they are not meant to carry the full weight of our loneliness, our identity, or our purpose. Sometimes the people we once knew change, or we do. Sometimes we outgrow each other not out of conflict but simply because we're walking different paths now. And sometimes the kindest, wisest thing we can do is to let go. To stop clinging to what was and gently open ourselves to what is and what could be. Your life doesn't end at retirement. It opens. This is your time, not just to look back but to grow, to give, to discover. Not just to reconnect, but to reimagine. So as you move forward, ask yourself, not from a place of guilt but from a place of self-respect, which relationships are still life-giving? Which ones feel forced or draining? And most of all, what new joys might be waiting for me if I create room for them? You are not alone. You are not forgotten. And no matter your age, there is still more joy to be lived, more meaning to be found, more love to be shared. So go gently, and go boldly, because your story is still unfolding. And the pages ahead are blank, with just enough space for something beautiful. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which of the 6 reflections today spoke to your heart the most? Leave a comment below, or even just a number. Your words, no matter how small, are a part of this community we're creating together. And if this video brought you clarity, comfort, or encouragement, I kindly invite you to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it too. Thank you for spending your time here. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and trust that the best parts of life may still be ahead.